So rest seems a little hard to come by these days. It feels like we are caught up in a space where quarantine allowed us to slow down a little bit, but now that things are shifting and some businesses and workplaces are reopening, we're being caught up in this wave of frantic activity to try to keep up with everything once again, but all at once. So the problem is that rest is getting left by the wayside again. And this whole idea of don't waste your quarantine that was popular 6 months ago, and I know a lot of people were using that to slow down and truly rest, whether it was physically, spiritually, mentally, all of that. That was popular 6 months ago. It's been left behind, right? Kind of in order to not get left behind. And I'm one of those people. I work for my church. We often talk about Sabbath, taking time to rest and be with the Lord. As we know, spiritual rest is infinitely valuable, and it's important because there is no life for us apart from Jesus. John 15:4-5 says, "Remain in me, and I will remain in you, just as no branch can bear fruit by itself unless it remains in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. The one who remains in me, and I in him, will bear much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing." Yeah, how many of us are remembering us, especially, how many of us as believers are remembering this? How many of us are remembering to stay in the vine, stay in the Word, stay with Jesus? How many of us remember that Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray? Or do we remember Matthew 11:28-30? Matthew 11:28-30 says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and I will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light." Do we remember that God rested on the seventh day of creation and blessed it for us? He wants it for us. I'm struggling with that. I would imagine that some of you out there are also struggling with that. And so in my mind, I've been remembering a fandom example for the past couple weeks, and I know this is kind of a strange example, but I'm going to use it anyway. For those of you who have seen Star Wars Rebels, you guys know Kanan Jarrus, right? Caleb Dune. He is my favorite Jedi. Kanan is my space boyfriend. Anyway, he fights with Darth Maul in the episode called Twilight of the Apprentice, and for those of you who have seen it, you know what happens to Kanan, and it's devastating. I'm not going to spoil it for those of you who have not seen it. But some may also say that what happens to him in that episode is one of the best things that happens to him because of his development in the Force. The result of that fight with Maul forces Kanan to retreat and recenter himself within the Force, right? Bendu, he finds Bendu. Bendu trains him in perceiving the world through more senses than Kanan had ever used before. And so, because of this event that happened and being forced into retreat, he actually gains greater insight into the world around him, despite his new ability or disability, however you view that. One might even argue that this season for Kanan is not, it may be not necessarily rest, but it is a season where he becomes reunited with the vine of the Force, if you will. So I want to ask you guys, how are you doing? How are you resting? Even if you can't take a full Sabbath day because of work or COVID or whatever else you have going on, are you still making time for God in your life? I used to beat myself up for not being able to get away from work for a whole Sabbath day, but working 3 to 4 jobs, and I'm also a secondary caregiver for my dad, it's really difficult. Really, really difficult. So now I don't beat myself up, but I do try to look for 5 minutes of reading time in the Bible that I can get, or for the time outside with my dog at the dog park to celebrate God's creation and beauty, or I look for the hour or two where my roommate and I go hiking and get out of cell reception, where we can get away from the busyness of the world and recenter ourselves around the God who created us. These are ways that I have found to rest and still be in the vine and to be spiritually rested, and I'm working on doing that more intentionally for a little bit more time each day, because I know that if my cup is running empty, I can't do my jobs well, I can't mentor people well, I can't lead people well, and that's part of my job, but that's also, we want to disciple people well and have great relationships with people and with God. So that's my story. I would love to know any ways that you're finding rest, that you're recentering yourself around God. And I also hope that if you're not there just yet, you might just simply try setting a 5-minute timer and praying, or reading, or worshiping, or go on a walk. Just start with 5 minutes. You will not regret it.